I was 25 pounds overweight with menopause belly fat that wouldn't budge, and I was under eating. That's mistake number one, and it's the one that tripped me up the hardest. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but it's exactly what happened to me, and it's why I'm making this video. I've made every single mistake I'm about to walk you through, and not just once, over and over for years. And I know I'm not the only one, because these same 7 mistakes show up in this channel's comments constantly from women going through the same thing. Undereating is where we're starting because it's the last thing most women think about when the weight won't move. This is the kind of frustration I hear from so many of you, from the comment section. I was to a point where I was starving myself and nothing. I actually gained weight by starving myself. I knew that during menopause, your belly stores everything because your belly thinks it's starving. I lived that, but I eat more food and more calories right now than I did when I was carrying the extra 25 pounds in belly fat. So here's what happens. A calorie deficit does matter for weight loss, sure, but a deficit alone isn't enough, and it can completely work against you. When you're not eating enough, your body can read that as a threat, not a plan. And under that kind of stress, it releases cortisol, one of the hormones we're going to keep coming back to today. So instead of releasing fat, your body shifts into conserving energy and holding on to it. It's not a betrayal, it's a survival instinct, protection against the wrong problem. And it doesn't stop there. Undereating also slows your metabolism, another conservation tactic, which means the deficit you started with gets harder and harder to maintain the longer you stay underfueled. Undereating is only part of the picture because there's something happening after menopause that most women were just never told. Mistake number 2 is not knowing how your hormones affect your weight after menopause. Here's just one example that recently landed in the comments. I've tried so much, including the foods here. Nothing works on this menopause fat. My body just doesn't want to change. This is the kind of comment I see daily. So many of you leave some version of this in one form or another, and I want you to hear this next part because it will change how you read this experience. I'm going to be straight with you. This next part is going to sound like a lot of bad news, but stick with me. Armed with this understanding, you'll start looking at every meal through a different lens, and you'll know what you need to change. Here's the ironclad truth, bar none. If you are genuinely in a deficit and your insulin and your cortisol are both low, your body has no choice, none, but to release stored energy like fat. This isn't motivation, and it's not willpower either. It's physics, the first law of thermodynamics. Your body can't create energy out of nothing, so it has to pull it from somewhere it's stored. But what you probably don't know is this. In menopause, your fat-storing hormones, insulin and cortisol, are almost never just sitting quietly in the background. They're actively working against the deficit you're already doing right. When your estrogen drops, fat storage shifts, and it moves off the hips and thighs and heads straight into your belly as visceral fat. And visceral fat doesn't just sit there, it's biologically active, which means it acts like its own organ, releasing hormones and inflammatory chemicals that affect how you store fat, how you use energy, and how much inflammation you're carrying. Declining estrogen also lowers leptin, which is your fullness hormone, and it lowers your insulin sensitivity too. If you've been around this channel a while, you know I talk a lot about this one. Lower sensitivity means your body has to make more insulin to do the same job it used to do with less. And that constant insulin surge drives cravings that quietly erode that deficit you thought you were in. And on top of all that, chronically elevated insulin tells your body to store fat. But that's not even all of it. Then there's cortisol, the stress hormone. After menopause, your body doesn't handle stress the way it used to. And that, along with hot flashes waking you up at night and just plain worse sleep overall, that's what keeps your cortisol elevated. This does 2 things. It tells your body to hold on to visceral fat, and it makes you retain water, which can hide fat loss on the scale for weeks, even when it's genuinely happening behind the scenes. So when the scale doesn't move, it's usually not that you're failing at the deficit. It's that your hormones are fighting the deficit you work so hard for, and that's the real frustration I read in the comments daily. And this is where it shows up in my own data. I wear a glucose monitor, a small sensor that tracks my blood sugar in real time day and night, and I test meals on myself and share the data with you. For those of you who follow the channel, welcome back. You know how this works by now. And for those of you who are new here, quick primer. This line right here is my blood sugar tracked live. When it climbs steep and fast like this, that's a spike. It's your blood sugar rising quickly after you eat. Here's why it matters. A spike triggers insulin, which is the hormone that moves sugar out of your blood and into your cells. The bigger and more frequent the spikes, the more insulin your body pumps out, and chronically high insulin is what tells your body to store fat instead of burn it. This particular result came from a meal at a friend's house. Meatless lasagna with asparagus on the side and a little slice of garlic bread. There were healthy things in the mix, sure, but the carb load was just still too much, and my blood sugar jumped from 86 points and went all the way up to 148. This is a very significant spike. My personal target, dialed in from 2 years of testing myself, is staying under a 40-point rise per meal as a pattern. That's the number that got me 25 pounds off. This meal blew right past it, and in your 30s, a meal like this probably wouldn't have caused nearly as dramatic a spike because insulin sensitivity is naturally higher before menopause. That's the difference menopause makes. This is the type of post-menopause spike I simply don't let happen on repeat all day long anymore, because spikes like this over and over are telling your body to store fat. Well, we can't turn the clock back on any of it, but we can fight back, starting with this mistake this next commenter figured out how to fix. I was fasting 18 hours and waiting until noon, but my blood sugar would still stay high. Then I started protein and it came down to perfect range by noon. Protein is a big eye-opener. Mistake number 3, and it's the most actionable one on this list: not enough protein. Shift your meals towards protein forward versus carb forward every meal, not just once a day when you remember. That's it. That's the whole first step, and it's a major one. Declining estrogen is the culprit here too. Lower estrogen means muscle loss and a slower metabolism. And yes, that's also why strength training matters, even though we mostly talk about food on this channel. But a video on building and maintaining muscle is coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Protein helps preserve muscle and metabolism, and it also keeps you full longer, and it triggers your body's release of its own natural GLP-1, the same pathway the meds work through. And a big piece of this ties right back to blood sugar. Remember that spike I just showed you from the lasagna? Here's what a protein-forward meal does instead. This was chicken franchise over spinach, made with my protein-based coating instead of breadcrumbs. My blood sugar went from 75 to 100, a 25-point rise, comfortably under my 40-point target. And this right here is where the weight comes off. So how much protein do you really need? The guideline for most adults is around 45 to 60 grams, but research specifically on women our age supports going higher than that, more like 68 to 84 grams. My own personal target from 2 years of testing on myself is at least 40 grams a meal. Not always possible, but at least 100 grams a day, and I usually go over that. I know that sounds like a lot. It's a lot easier than it sounds once you add things like clean protein powder, Greek yogurt, eggs, and cottage cheese. And if you want to see what a full day of this looks like for me, I've got the video linked in the description, and I'll link it again at the end of this one too. You can do this. And that mindset is right where mistake number 4 comes in. This one shows up before you've taken a single bite, going in with a deprivation mindset. Here's an excerpt from a recurring theme on this topic. I'm excited to try this. I've done everything but always gain the weight back and more. It's so hard counting every calorie and macro, and what makes it worse is living with a family that's used to a traditional American diet. I feel like I'm missing out, and I give up. So Going in overwhelmed or already bracing for deprivation is completely normal. There's so much conflicting information out there. And when we've been trained our entire lives to believe the only path to the result is basically starving ourselves, we believe it. No one wants that, so we repel it. And that's why most diets just don't work long term. If you want this to be sustainable, you need to be satisfied, period. I've said it before on this channel. I eat more food and more calories now than I did 25 pounds ago. And I haven't gained a single ounce back in over 2 years. Well, I mean, maybe an ounce here and there, but you get the point. Here's what that pattern looks like for me day to day. It's about eating the right foods in the right order, not another yo-yo diet hack. It's not about sacrifice either. It's about a pattern. When I really want a treat, I have it. I don't think twice about it. And pizza, for instance, is my weakness. I'm never giving it up, and I don't worry about it because the pattern underneath it is solid. And this might make you think I'm anti-carb. I'm not. Which brings us to mistake number 5, and it's one of the most common ones I hear. Believing all carbs are equal or that carbs are the enemy. And this one wasn't shy about it. It's not true. Carbs make you fat. You are not different from all of us. Carbs do not work to make you slim. Well, carbs from fruit and vegetables are nowhere close to the same as dense refined carbs like white bread, donuts, or pizza. Carbs are your body's primary fuel source, and high fiber carbs are vital for regulating blood sugar and for a healthy gut. I eat a ton of fruit, vegetables, and beans, and they also give me other nutrients I need. What I limit is dense carbs. I keep those to under 25 grams at any given meal unless it's a cheat meal. And technically, we don't even need dietary carbs at all. Your body can convert protein and fat into glucose, but that doesn't mean it should have to. This is real physiology, not just a feeling. When carbs stay at 0 long enough, your body leans on a process called gluconeogenesis to manufacture its own glucose, and muscle tissue can end up as part of that fuel source. This is the same concern one of you raised after years of strict carnivore eating, and it's why even long-time carnivores are starting to circle back to carbs. Carbs are still your body's most efficient fuel for your brain and your muscles. So no, carbs aren't the villain, and they can and should be part of a balanced plan for weight loss. Too much of the wrong ones though, that's what feeds a cycle of mistake number 6. This is the one many of you tell me feels impossible to break, believing sugar and junk food cravings are unavoidable. Another one of you put it perfectly. What I have difficulty to control is cravings for sugary things, especially as I have a high-strung job working under pressure. What do I do with the sweet cravings after lunch or when I get home at 10 p.m.? Here's the reality. Sugar begets sugar. Blood sugar spiking and crashing all day feeds more of the same craving cycle. And not enough protein plus the wrong kinds of carbs keeps that cycle running over and over. The second I broke that pattern, the weight came off and my cravings all but disappeared. There's another factor at play here too though. Some cravings are just habit, and the best way to break a bad habit is to replace it with a better one. Be gentle with yourself though. Small changes stacked over time are what really add up to the big wins. And that gentler mindset is precisely what you need to hear for this last one, mistake number 7. And it's the heaviest one on this list. Self-blame, believing it's a lack of willpower, or just rolling over and accepting defeat. It breaks my heart how often I read comments like this. Tried everything and nothing worked. There's something wrong with me. I'm 58 and broken. I need you to really hear this. It's not your fault. Menopause handed you a rough hand of cards, but the game isn't over, not even close. If I can do this, you can do this. And plenty of other women watching right now have already done it too. Here's a sample from the comments. I'm 58 and I've been doing every single one of your suggestions for the past 4 years, and it's true. They really do work. And there you have it. Let me know in the comments if you're ready to make a change. I read every single one and I answer as many as I can. And like I promised, my full What I Eat in a Day video is linked right here for you. Now, I'm not a doctor and this video isn't medical advice. I share what's worked for me and for other women in this community. Always check with your doctor before changing your diet. I'll see you on the next one.